there. So there is a generation, there's some emission of gas in some land, especially in some mangroves and swampy area. These farmers spend not less than 3-4 hours on the farm. See, they are already exposed to such emissions. So a farmer gets back from home, the plant he will heat or sell to the market is already carrying a signature of those gases in them. And people will eat those things. The farmer himself will get sick, and the people that eat will get sick. There will be DNA remodeling and stuff. We can stop all these things. It's all related to climate. So where Nigeria is right now, we are forging with Dr. Peng to do indigenous creation of these sensors here. Because till now, we have to import it from Australia. So we are looking at a tripartite model between one federal school, one state school, and one private school, with another collaborator who Mr. Oluwoyo know from our climate action conference, the Circularity African Week we had last month. So we are moving forward. By October or thereabout, we'll be able to say we have 3 hubs in Nigeria locally producing these sensors, which can be deployable. People can have projects to monitor what is happening in farm, in greenhouses, and all of these things. So we have to keep challenging the government and policymakers. Let them feel embarrassed. Talk to them about the wastage. No leader wants he wants to save money, but you don't tell him about saving money. You tell him about you are wasting money. You are wasting money. Then, like the video Mr. Oluwoyo posted at the beginning, this young girl, those ones that built fuselage and all those stuff of the aircraft, they were saying, people are wondering how a 13-year-old, 14-year-old will build a plane. And the plane flew. So if 13-year-old, 3-year-old, 6-year-old kids are winning competitions, saving money for their parents, getting sponsorship and meeting important people, we are a lot older than that. And our leaders can get embarrassed when they realize that it's a young boy that is doing this. Even the phones we are holding, do we know how old the boy that coupled everything, how old the boy is? But we are here trying to oppress everybody. I am using iPhone 3. If you realize how young the person who made it is, we will cover our faces in shame. So where Nigeria is we have some philanthropists we can approach who will be willing to pump money, but it depends on how we carry the message to them. So don't let me take more time than this. It's already 5 minutes. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Peng.
You're welcome. I will propose do another meeting. It takes only half an hour to do the drone demo. It will benefit everybody.
Yeah, please contact us through the WhatsApp contacts. We can make an arrangement for that. Thank you, Caap, for having us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ebenezer Ajayi. Thank you, Dr. Peng. Really appreciate the time and the learning you provided this morning. We are so glad. And just like you recommended, we see to that on how we can reschedule to have a 30 minutes practical section, just like you mentioned, and Dr. Ajayi, we discuss better on that. So yes, without taking much of our time, we would like to go to the second section. And yeah, I think we have our YouTube feeds on now as we speak. So Doctor, please, you can end sharing from your...
Okay, right away, please.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much, sir. Without wasting much of our time, we are going straight to the second section, and taking us on the second section is our Miss Huyenye. And what the second section about is typically on renewable energy and energy management. We'll be sharing a profile of our facilitator who will be handling that session, and after that, she is going to come on board for the next 1 hour. Please kindly prepare your question. This time around, we will prefer you drop your question on the chat box, whereby the facilitator and the other organizer and they can as well monitor, and we have a swift response to each and every one. In a minute now, I'll be sharing the profile of our next facilitator, and before she come on board. Thank you very much.
ONYE is the Association of Energy Engineers Sub-Saharan African Region Young Energy Professional of the Year 2020. She's an alumnus of the NL Foundation, Open Africa Power Program, and the first female certified energy manager.
Doctor, your mic is on.
She's a versatile professional with 8 years of experience in energy systems and management. She is currently the head of mini grids at NG Energy Access Nigeria, She is responsible for building a high-performing team that will electrify rural communities, stimulate demand, and build a profitable business. She is knowledgeable in renewable energy systems, energy management, power utility management, energy market tariff modeling, and power system planning. She is adept at conceptualizing and implementing innovative policies and systems that improve business efficiency. Onye has a master's in energy technology and management from the University of Ibadan and a bachelor's in electronics and computer engineering from Nnamdi Azikiwe University. She is a certified expert in climate and renewable energy finance from the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. She has also completed executive training from the Florence School of Regulation, Italy, the University of South Africa Graduate Business School, and the National Power Training Institute, Nigeria. She is a registered engineer in Nigeria, a member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers and the Association of Energy Engineers USA. Onye is a training facilitator for the Energy Training Center, where she delivers training in energy systems. Onye volunteers with Awedi Networks, a not-for-profit organization focused on developing women across the energy value chain.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are glad to have you on board. Thank you, Mr. Onye. We are really glad. And I know this session which you are going on is going to be another insightful one. Over to you. Thank you very much. And please, to participants, the YouTube feed is available for us to follow up with. Should in case you are more comfortable with YouTube platform, you can go to the YouTube platform and join. Yeah, over to you, ma'am.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. And thank you to the organizers of this program for the invitation. Congratulations to everybody that made it here. We all know that climate change and climate action is the biggest buzzword, and we only have one planet. So everybody must roll up their sleeves and do what we need to do to secure our planet. Let me apologize first. I have a flu, so my voice may not be very, I'll do my best to project as much as possible, but my voice may not, it doesn't sound like it normally sounds right now. So just bear with me a bit. And then secondly, I'm not a very slide person, so I'm not a professor. I would rather an interactive class. I have a slide, I do have a slide, but I would rather an interactive class. And that's why I think I like the Zoom platform, where I'm sure I'm able to answer the questions that you have and be sure that the knowledge that is transferred is what is necessary at the time. So just to keep us going, we know what the topic is renewable energy and energy management. I want to ask that you go to the comment section, or if you actually want, somebody's hand is up. Miracle Chimereze, do you still want to say something? So if you go to the comment section, help me write your expectations, what you're expecting to learn, or any questions you have that you may want me to answer in this session. I'll just give a couple of minutes before, so I can see where the class is leaning, so I know how to answer. Okay, no questions from Miracle. So if you just go to the comments, what would you like to know about renewable energy? What would you like to know about energy management? Do you want to know why? How you can use energy sustainably. I'm expecting to learn more about renewable energy. I was hoping for this to come, how Nigeria can integrate renewable energy to the power grid. Let's keep them coming. I will just try and share my screen right now. Apologies, I live in Nigeria, so apologies for the noise. I see. Biomass, energy efficiently. Okay, opportunities in renewable energy, fantastic. Please, can you see my screen? I don't know if I've successful.
Not yet. Not yet. Okay, I think it's up now.
Fantastic. Okay, so thank you very much for the comments. I like that. First of all, I typically would just like to give this disclaimer that I don't represent my employer as I'm here. The thoughts and views I express are personally mine and do not represent whoever I've worked with. If the information presented here, as you can imagine, is not completely mine. For some of them, I've quoted where they came from. For some of them, maybe not. So I'm saying that I may not have been specifically authorized by the owner to use it. But for everyone that I know how to reference, I have referenced. Sure, it's just one of those things we have to do so that we're not afar of we're not running foul of anybody's copyright. Okay. So I'll start from the basics, right? And I'll start from the basics of energy. Sorry, guys. If you see me looking to the left, I have two screens in front of me, so I'm not being distracted to the right, to my right. It's just me looking at my slides. So I'll try and start from the basics so that I'm sure I'm carrying everybody along. Energy can be defined as capacity to do work. So energy is the capacity to carry a heavy load, the capacity to power a light bulb, right? Potential for doing work, for those of us that are engineers. It comes in various forms, heat, electrical energy, solar energy, nuclear energy, mechanical energy, right? And then down to the basic energy conservation principle that we know. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, but can be transformed from one form to another, right? This is critical to understand because for most of the renewable sources of energy, we will typically then transform them to heat and or electricity, depending on the forms of utilization. So generally, depending on how you describe it, you can describe energy in terms of their sources. So whether they are renewable energy sources or non-renewable energy sources. So for today, we're going to focus on the renewable sources of energy, right? Now, for the renewable sources of energy, like I believe everybody in this class knows, these are sources that can easily be replaced through a natural process, right? So that it is, some definitions will say that it is replenished faster than is being consumed. Because like fossil fuel can actually be replaced, but it's not replaced as fast as it's being consumed. But again, it then has other harmful effects in the environment, right? So it's typically seen as an unlimited source, like the sun. It is normally said that, the energy from the sun can power, all the energy needs that we have in the world, right? Now, so we have like 5 major categories of renewable energy systems. I'll just take time and go through all of them. We have hydro energy, we have wind energy, we have solar energy, we have tidal energy, One moment, my slide is misbehaving. Just give me a moment, please. Sorry, guys. I need to be sure that. Okay, so thank you very much for this comment. Please make the explanation as simple as possible, as you may have some people that are not really science-based or inclined. Okay, so I will go over energy again, so that it is as basic as possible, right? So energy is the ability to do work. So energy is the fact that I can stand up and carry a heavy load. In the simplest of forms, the same way I can stand up and carry a heavy load, which engineers will call mechanical energy. Energy is ability to create motion, right? So I have a hot cup of tea in front of me. This cup of tea actually possesses thermal energy. And the reason I know that it possesses thermal energy is if I pour it on my hand, it's going to injure me. So it has the ability to peel off my skin at some point, right? Now, so energy is that thing that gives, that provides motion or that causes work to be done, right? Now, we have energy sources. We call them either renewable or non-renewable. So I will break it down a bit more further. Energy is usually stored in nature. So we have chemical energy, mechanical energy. So chemical energy is the energy that is stored in foods, right? In naturally occurring foods. So the fact that you can buy vegetables in the market and eat it and your stomach is full and then your body converts that energy and you're able to use it to do other work is a simple analogy of the energy value chain. So you didn't create that energy, right? So you bought beans in the market and inside that beans has an energy content and then you cook it and then you eat it and your body breaks down that and provides you with the glucose that you need to carry out work. So then that is in simple forms, that's actually how power is generated through the energy system. Now, non-renewable energy sources are energy sources that are not replenished as fast as they are being consumed. So give example, the way we get fossil fuel, right? The way we get diesel is that oil is found, right? And then we process it, right? Engineers process it, and then it is distilled, and then we have diesel, and then diesel is then turned into your car. Your car has the ability to burn that diesel, and then make your car engine has the ability to burn that diesel and then make your car move, right? Now the thing is that the feedstock, like we will call it, for diesel, which is oil, right? It's not being replenished as fast as it's being consumed. So in simple terms, let me put it this way. Renewable energy sources is like an ocean, right? No matter how much pipe you put into an ocean to draw water, it's flowing from somewhere because it has a source. It keeps flowing, right? Nobody has been able to drain an ocean, right? But non-renewable energy sources are like a lake, right? That water is limited. It's in that body, right? Even if it's coming in, it's trickling in. So if you actually sit down and see, any of these small lakes that we have, you can actually put in a pipe that maybe takes you maybe 6 months, but if you put in a pipe there, you should be able to drain out all the water, and it's not being replenished as fast as it's being drained out. But you can never drain out the Atlantic Ocean, right? So in a sense, that's the difference between renewable energy sources and non-renewable energy sources. Notice I've not used the word clean in any of these two, right? So renewable energy sources by definition is that the energy is renewable in the way it's been explained, right? Non-renewable energy sources is that it is limited, the supply is limited, and it can finish. I didn't use the word clean, right? So now, the renewable energy sources that we have generally around the world, we have hydro energy. Reference back the example I made around water. The fact that if you have an ocean and a lake, an ocean, you can't drain out all the water in an ocean, right? So I will take that one and I will explain it. Now, how do we get energy from a hydro system? To get energy from a hydro system, you convert the energy in the flow of the water. So the energy is not in the water, the energy is in the flow of the water. The water moves. So what you want to do is to tap the energy in that motion, right? In the motion of the water, and then engineers understand how to convert it. I'll try and explain it into electricity. For most of these renewable energy sources, one of the simplest way to convert it is to convert them into electricity, right? So, you know what, for better explanation and understanding, I'll start with solar systems. So the way the solar system works is similar to photosynthesis. So for those of us that are science students, the way the plants live, right, takes in carbohydrates and converts it into food, and then we are able to take in that food. So what happens is that your solar cells, right, have the ability to take in light from the sun by reason of the kind of those kind of solar cells and convert them to electricity. So it takes in light from the sun through the material that is put in there and then converts it to electricity. A hydro system takes in the motion of water, right? And then converts it to electricity. Before I continue and speak about all the other ones, because all the other ones generate power in the same format. I'll take a pause. I'll take a pause and then explain how power is generated. Power is generated by three major things, right? Power, electricity is generated with three major things. If you have these three major things, you can try it in your house, you will generate power. If you have a magnet, if you have a coil of wire, and if you have relative motion. So motion is if you pass that magnet through a coil of wire, electricity is generated. I'm not joking. If you have a magnet in your house right now, if you put it down and you get a wire and roll it around, you get a wire and roll it around that magnet. If you pass the magnet through the wire, power is going to be generated. Anything you hear about power generation, that's how it's done in a wind power plant, in circular power plant. That's the basic principle. Now, so you can have a magnet somewhere and you have a coil of wire somewhere, right? Which is what we have essentially, even in the generator in your house. If you open it, that's what you're going to see. Now, but what you need to be able to generate that huge amount of power is the motion, because that motion, literally, if this is a coil of wire, I need to keep passing the magnet through, right? Like this, for power to keep being generated. You need something to keep giving you that motion, to keep generating the power in the coil of wire, right? So that's where all the other energy resources come in. So all of them, what they help you do is generate the motion. And that's why I kept on saying it's the motion in the hydro energy. So what we do with hydro energy and for hydro power plants is you have a body of water, right? You try and put it at a height. So imagine, again, simple, the tank in your house. For most of us, if I mean, there's no piped water for most of Nigeria. The tanks in our house are always overhead, right? The reason you put it overhead is that you want the tank to be able to generate pressure, so you don't have to pump water down, right? That's the reason you put it over. If you put it down, you have to pump water out. That's the reason we put tanks overhead. So it's the same thing that we do in a hydropower plant. That's why we build dams. So you build a dam. The essence of the dam is to create pressure, right? So once you build that dam, you create the pressure, and then because it's at a height, the water runs down at a force, right? So it is rushing down. If you go to any hydropower plant, this is what you are going to see. As it's rushing down, you are going to see the water turning a turbine. It's going to be turning something. I told you, the magnet is already there, the coil of wire is there. In that system, all you need is something that will keep turning the turbine for you, right? That's what you have in a hydropower plant. Water is going to come down and keep turning your turbine and keep generating power. Basic principle. And it's the same thing for every other thing you've seen on my screen. In a wind power plant, it's the same thing. What is going to happen is the wind is going to turn that fan, right? It's going to turn the fan. As it turns the fan, the same thing is happening back end. A coil of wire is cutting through a magnet and power is generated. If we go through tidal energy, which is essentially instead of using the force of air in the wind, you use the force of water under the water, the same thing happens. The system back end is the same. You take the force of that water, it's going to turn a system for you. Some people use pistons, some people use turbines, but essentially what you want for power generation is motion. That's the most, that's what you get from all the energy resources apart from solar. That's why I explained it first. You get motion. And once you get that motion, the motion turns a turbine or turns whatever mechanical system you have in there. As it turns that mechanical system, either a magnet is moved through a coil of wire, a coil of wire is moved through a magnet, depending on whatever configuration you have. And once you have that, power is generated in that system, right? Geothermal energy is the energy that is stored under the earth, right? For some of us that may be science inclined, the same way water makes up more than 1/3 of the world. Under our feet, there's water, but also in certain places, there is heat, there's steam. So if you've heard about volcano sites, you know, the fact that under the earth, there's a lot of heat. This is also naturally occurring. Nobody puts it there. God that created us in his infinite wisdom put in heat there. Now, so geothermal energy is you put in pipes under the earth to be able to extract the heat for you. Now, the heat is used to boil water. That water is then used, the steam from the water is then used to turn a turbine. So a geothermal power plant is similar to a fossil fuel power plant, because most fossil fuel power plants use heat. So what happens with the fossil fuel power plant, now we're going to fossil fuel, but what happens with that kind of power plant is that you get, I use the example of the generator in your house. You get fossil fuel, so you get diesel or petrol or gas, right? For most of them, for steam power plants, what happens is you use that petrol to boil water. Then you use the motion of the steam of the water. If you boil water in your kitchen and you see through the nozzle, you will see a lot of heat coming out of the nozzle. That steam, same way, the steam is directed to a turbine blade. The turbine blade turns. As it turns, it generates power, right? It's the same thing that then happens in a geothermal power plant. So, but the major thing is that you then have a system, instead of using diesel or gas or coal to boil water, to generate the steam that will turn the turbine, what you then do is you extract the heat from under the ground where God has kept it, and you use that same heat to boil the water to turn a turbine. Sorry, let me look at, okay, I wanted to see if there was any questions. Right, so I think I've been able to go through all of them, right? Apart from the solar system you see here, all the other forms of renewable energy generate power with the same technology as even the fossil fuel. You need to generate power the conventional way. That's what we call conventional power generation. You need a coil of wire, you need magnets, and you need relative motion. The most, the other two are static. You can always provide them, the coil of wire and the magnet. What you need to continuously provide is the motion, right? So once you have a system that can provide you that motion, you're good. Whether you harness the motion of the wind, fine. You harness the motion of the hydro energy by putting water at a height and allowing it on your turbine, fine. You put the turbine underwater and allowing the flow of the water to turn the turbine, fine. You extract heat from the ground and use it to boil water or use it to boil a liquid. Sometimes it's not always water, but you understand the fact that the heat in the water can turn a system or in the liquid, right? Use it to turn a turbine, that's fine. Now for biomass, it's the same thing. You use natural materials, right? So you use biomass materials. It's either you get, wood is biomass, right? It's either I get wood, boil water, I boil the water and I use it to power a system. Or based on what we call gasification, right? You take that, you take the biomass, right? And allow it to, we call it an anaerobic digestion, right? You allow it to digest. When it's done digesting, it produces a gas. In many instances, it's methane gas. Produces a gas. You use that same gas to boil water, right? And that water, you use it to turn a turbine. So the most important thing you're looking for in power generation is motion, right? So however you are able to then convert all the different forms of energy, whether they are renewable or non-renewable, naturally occurring or not naturally occurring, to get that motion to then produce the power. That's what makes up all the other technologies. Now, there are other technologies for generating power. There's hydrogen and all of that. Those are what we call new power generation technologies that are coming up, right? But the most conventional ones is the same system I've explained, and that's how the power is generated. Now, the renewable energy sources, right, that we have, the renewable energy sources we have are what I have currently listed on the screen. So let's move ahead. Now, renewable energy for power generation and for grid integration, like one of the questions that you rightly asked. Why it is important is that we understand, and I believe everybody here understands it, is that to use the fossil fuel, right, the use of fossil fuel energy, right, has damaged the climate, has damaged part of our climate system. Because to burn fossil fuel generates what we call GHGs and harmful emissions into the atmosphere that has continued to damage the atmosphere. Now, the need for moving to renewable energy is so that we can continually abate the impact that the continuous use of fossil fuel has had on the climate. So there is now that renewed call, or that call to move into renewable energy systems, right? And the reason, as I have explained earlier, as you can see with all the other explanations for the sources of renewable energy, there's little or no usage of fossil fuel. Now, fossil fuels, like we know, coal, gas, diesel, heavy crude, and all of that, they emit CO2, they emit carbon into the atmosphere. Now, this carbon has a way of mixing. They emit carbon, CO2, and then it has a way of mixing with all the other elements in the atmosphere and causes damage on the atmosphere, right? However, if we use these naturally occurring energy sources, like I've explained, they do not have those carbon materials, and so because of that, they do not emit into the environment, right? Now, we move to grid integration of renewable energy. I think that's one of the questions somebody asked here. Can we integrate renewables? And again, speaking about it in the Nigerian context, since we're in Nigeria, can we integrate renewables in the Nigerian grid? Can somebody attempt that question? Do we think it's possible to integrate any of these renewable energy sources that I have mentioned into the Nigerian grid?
Very well. Very well.
Yes, Samuel, please go for it.
I said, yes, very well, we can integrate it, definitely.
Why do you think so?
Right. Well, I think we have the human capacity to do that, and we have the resources to do that. So it's very, very possible. Very, very possible. Very, very possible.
I like your faith. Does any other person have? Say we have all the fakes.
Yeah.
I like the optimism in this class.
Can I go on?
Yes, please, Mohammed. Please.
Okay, yeah, I believe it's possible to integrate the renewable into the national grid that we have now. And why I believe that is the most important, the focus is not on the source, is actually to get us powered. Yes, we already know that the non-renewable is what we've been using, and even at that, it has not yielded results. So if the renewable is coming up, we already have the transmission grid out there. So if we focus on the renewable and get it all up, that's why I feel yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, spot on. Yeah, very spot on. And the truth of the matter is, we already have integrated. Right. So I was going to say we already have renewables Okay, Genesis, you wanted to say something? Hi, Genesis, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, we can integrate the renewable energy into the national grid. Nigeria, especially the hydro, we have water everywhere. And before now, we were told our electricity was generated from like we have dams in Nigeria that we can see generation. And looking here, we from the south, we have the ocean all over, which is very easy for us to generate the tidal renewable energy. And the wind in the north can also serve that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Genesis. I think the next person is Ame Ezekiel. You can unmute yourself.
All right. Thank you. Can I be heard?
Yes,
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I said, in my own opinion, it is possible to integrate it. it's a source of energy, and in fact, it's more reliable than, and in fact, cheaper than most of the ones we are currently using. And I can say for sure that it's already been integrated into our national grid. You can see a lot of initiative from the federal government on renewable energy, like Energize Solar Nigeria, like 5 million solar Nigeria initiative of the federal government under the economic system. So I think it has already been done, although not in a large scale, and it's really working. A lot of businesses would be empowered if that is put forward, in a larger scale. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamuna. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I think it's possible. So let me look at it from this angle. Most people that would want to generate such kind of energy, this renewable energy now, would be mostly private individuals, and it will somehow be a source of profiting for them, in that they get to make this excess energy, because now this energy is generated by these individuals and they don't get to consume the whole of it. So this excess is, instead of it just getting wasted, they push it to the national grid and they get paid for it. It will be a way of generating income for people, and secondly, a motivation for other people to imbibe renewable energy sources, knowing that, okay, my excess energy can actually bring profits to me. Because most times what motivates people to doing things is the profits that's associated to it. So very well, it is very possible.
Okay, thank you very much. This is bringing a lot of interest. Ita, have you spoken? I think you spoke.
No, I've not spoken.
Yes, please, let's hear you.
Okay, yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you, madam. Yes, it is always very, very possible. But my problem here is this, that the question is, we ask this time, is Nigeria really ready to really go into? But I find God, at least government has done maybe part of their own. Because like I am talking to you now, where I am staying for over 1 year, this is a place people are national, or call it a PHC, NEPA is a problem. But somebody like me, I was able to use my solar panel and all not to derive energy. But I think the private sector is the main people that can really help us in this area, because the government will never be sensitive to it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there lots of hands that are up? Please, if you spoke, just take down your hand so I can manage. There's Khadija.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. I was hoping that I would get called upon. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, good. I will be talking on the aspect of the government. Renewable energy, find they are integrating it according to the statement you made in between. But they are still kind of harnessing one source, which is the solar. As a scientist, microbiology, and from what I picked with Dr. Ebenezer Ajayi from first session there, I am looking at how we can clean the environment and at the same time benefit from cleaning up the environment in terms of getting energy production. I've always had this idea ever since I learned about the course on environmental microbiology, that even if the fish seller in the marketplace can have access to a device that when she takes out dirty, she'll be interested in taking out the intestines of the fish so that she can take it back to her device in the house to help her generate electricity or energy for use in a place. That is kind of my vision for helping to clean up the environment. We would have a healthier environment and people would have energy to be able to help boost the economy in terms of production. manufacturing and all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take the last comment from Oluwashola. Then I think we have already answered.
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, speak on, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, so the way I see the national grid is power being generated and then it's channeled towards a particular substation. So I feel that that's also possible for renewable energy. There's a law that says that if you generate power to a particular megawatt, you need to transmit it to the federal government, which we normally refer to as national grid. So basically, the national grid is not just one single place where you have all the power in Nigeria residents. It's actually a function of substations. So if we have probably Lagos generating renewable energy, for a very big quantum of energy, all that needs to be done is for it to be transmitted through the Transmission Company of Nigeria, and then the Transmission Company of Nigeria can then distribute it to the discos, and then we have the power in our houses.
Okay, thank you very much. I think everybody has spoken. So yes, everybody was right. Can we integrate renewables into the national grid, into the Nigerian grid? The answer is yes. The answer is that it is already being done. So today we have Kainji, we have Jeba, the Kainji hydropower station, we have Jeba hydropower station, and all of them generate into the national grid today. So for all those energy resources I mentioned earlier, it may be easy to integrate a couple and may not be as easy to integrate others. So it may be easy to integrate hydro energy. It may be easy to integrate biomass. It may be easy to integrate geothermal. But when you then want to speak about integrating wind and solar to the grid, they are referred to as intermittent energy sources, which means that you don't control the availability. You don't control when the sun will shine, and you don't control when the wind will blow. Because you don't control it, you cannot plan for it. And in order for you to manage a grid, now, assuming the Nigerian grid works, I know our grid is less than adequate, but assuming it works, you should be able to plan and know that you can provide power for X amount of time, for X amount of customers consistently, right? So because, the weather was very dark this morning, it rained, right? And if you have that, then you may not get as much solar yield as you want. Now, because these resources are intermittent, the wind is intermittent. You don't know whether the wind will start blowing in the next 30 minutes. Well, maybe you can know, right? But if it is not blowing now, then how do you generate the energy that you need? Or even if you know it's not going to blow at a certain time, then you cannot trust that energy resource. Now, if you look at this graph here, there's something we call base load. And today, science is evolving, so we will get better at it. You would typically want to fill your base load with energy resources that you are sure you can control. So I can barring any unforeseen circumstance, a power plant should be able to say that I have signed a gas supply agreement with X gas supplier, and I'm sure that I will have gas for the next 5 years. I'm sure that I'll have X amount of gas to generate X amount of power for the next X amount of time. So because of that level of guarantee, and because of that level of planning that you can put in, you would want to use those energy resources as what you call your base load. So I'll take base load to your house. Let me tell you what base load is in your house. Your base load is your fridge. Assuming you're like me, that you don't turn off your fridge when you go out. Most people don't. So your base load is that load that is constantly on for the whole period of time. Once there's power, it comes on automatically. For most of us, it's our fridge. So it means that at every point in time, again, if we are in a fully functional system, the grid should be able to supply everybody's fridge at every point in time, right? The peak load is then what we call, the load that comes up and go, or the intermittent load. So my fridge is always on, but if I'm not around, my air conditioner is not on. If I come back in the evening, I turn on my air conditioner. Now, for a lot of us, all of our air conditioners come on around, assuming there's always light, it comes on around 7 p.m. Or, when all of us come back from work and you come back and, you turn on your lights, come on around that time, lights come on at night, cooling systems come on around that time, excuse me. Now, so you see that because of the requirement to always meet the base load, it may be difficult to use intermittent energy resources to plan for base load, because you don't control the energy resource, you don't control the sun, you don't control the wind. So you will use the energy resource that you can plan for your base load, and then you can layer upon it the intermittent resource. So if you know that, okay, the sun may be available today, so we can say, okay, maybe we will use our base load to do 80% of the grid, and then we'll use that 20% from the intermittent resource, which today is solar and wind, to then be able to manage the excesses, right? And then you can also use it to meet your peak load, that load that is not always constant. You can use it. The other reason why it is then difficult in the Nigerian context to integrate renewables into the grid is that because of their intermittency and because of the need to control them, the Nigerian grid today does not have that level of sophistication. And when I speak about the Nigerian grid, I'm speaking about the grid. I'm not talking about, you can put the solar system on your roof and maybe power your estate. No, I'm talking about putting it on the grid so that it can be dispatched from the grid, right? We don't have that level of sophistication in our monitoring and controlling of devices. Somebody mentioned, I think IoT was mentioned here earlier. In our monitoring and control, to be able to manage that, to be able to control it, to be able to say, okay, come in at 4 p.m., go out at 6 a.m., right? We don't have that. Yeah, thank you. We don't have that level of control today. I mean, all of you mentioned that we have the human resource. We have the human resource. The government is doing everything. But our grid has not grown with us in terms of sophistication, in terms of, we had a grid collapse on Monday. Grid collapse is not normal. And from what they say from the news people, I think this is number 13 this year. The grid doesn't have that level of sophistication to manage the intermittency of certain renewable resources. I've mentioned that hydro is very easy. It's very easy to integrate hydro. It would be easy to integrate geothermal if we had geothermal resource. We don't have the geothermal resource in Nigeria. Countries in East Africa like Kenya has a lot of geothermal resource. Most of Kenya's power is generated by geothermal. Places like South Africa, they've developed their biomass, in fact, they even use, they use their sewage system to generate power. They use landfill like Ojota to generate power. They do the gasification that I mentioned about earlier. They do all of that, right? So, but today we don't have that level of sophistication. Is it possible? Yes. Are we there yet? No. Is it possible for hydro and some others? Yes, it is. Right? I'm just looking at solar energy can be generated and reserved to be used when needed. Yes, that is true. That is very true, but then it comes at a cost because it means you then have to buy the batteries, right, to be used. What we have seen today is that a lot of factories are using solar systems, even without the batteries, to supply their day load. So you're sure that you're going to have sunlight, at least, excuse me, to a certain percentage. You're sure you're going to have sunlight to a certain percentage during the day. So you can predict that. Right, but remember that the grid supplies power to somebody mentioned substations. Maybe the grid is expected to manage 100 transmission substations, over 100,000 distribution substations, over 50,000 kilometers of lines. All of that is, in a sense, controlled by the grid. We're not there yet to do it on the grid level. Can we do it on the lower voltage level? Yes. Can you say, oh, okay, this part of Lagos, like somebody mentioned, Ojota area, let's use Ojota to generate, let's use the landfill there, generate power and just feed that whole Ojota Ogudu area. Is that possible? Yes. Is it possible to put it on the 330 voltage on the national grid? We're not yet there yet. Okay, so I think we can move away from, anyway, this is what I just explained. Right?
Yeah, please, I want to preach your audience. And this session is meant to end by Helen. And though I know you have a lot of resources which you still want to share with us. And definitely our participants who are joining have a lot of questions they would like to ask. So we appreciate we move to the next areas which you also want to share with us while we have the questions and answer session now.
Don't worry, I will. I'm already done with renewable energy. What I just explained is what I put on the screen. To the limit to which we can use, certain energy resources, right? As you can see, for solar PV, we don't have. For the very intermittent one, like I mentioned, it usually will stop around, smaller IPPs. For the African continent today, of course, if you follow the news, you know that in other countries, we're already having that integrated to the grid. As it does not net zero. So I'm trying to read the questions. I'd like to, can we manage, monitor, and evaluate it from the Nigerian officials? Well, we're not ready for this. What if we are? And like I said, it's happening in other countries, so it's not rocket science. We're not going to invent anything. We're not going to invent anything new. So yes, with the right kind of policy, right kind of leadership, right kind of incentives. Somebody mentioned if you put incentives on the table here, people respond differently. With the right kind of incentives, yes, of course, our grid can get there. It's not rocket science. It's definitely not rocket science. It will require a lot of finance, yes, but it's not rocket science. So we move quickly to energy management. This will also be we'll just be very, very brief on this. Energy management is essentially planning operations of energy production, consumption, and energy distribution and storage, right? The objectives is, of course, to meet your business objectives. So if we look at it from the point of the grid, right? So it is energy production, storage, transmission, distribution. So if we look at it from the Nigerian grid, in terms of energy management, energy on the grid, what you want to do is to be able to produce enough energy for all the customers involved, transmit that energy, and also utilize it properly so that your cost is managed while bearing climate protection, cost savings, and conservation in mind, right? So that's what you want to do. If you look at it from the angle of facility managers, right? So from a lower scale. So imagine that you are the energy manager of a factory. So for a Nestle factory, like you're the energy manager. What you want to do with energy management is to control your energy production. Now, whether that energy comes from the grid or whether you have your own power plant there that generates the energy is different. But you want to make sure at every point in time, you have energy production that meets the need of your factory, right? So that you produce enough energy to meet the need of your factory, not just the production, the chain, right? From the energy plant, from the plant to where the energy is used, the transmission and distribution, you want to be sure that you are completely in control of that, right? If you need to store the energy, like somebody mentioned earlier, you're also in control of the storage. But your objectives with energy management is to conserve energy, is to protect the climate, and to also guarantee cost savings, right? And to, of course, I've already mentioned it, to provide access to everybody that needs the access. That's the entire objective of energy management. Now, embedded in energy management is one buzzword we always talk about, which is directly linked to climate change, which is energy efficiency. Now, what is energy efficiency? Energy efficiency is using less to produce, using the same amount of energy to produce more output, or using less energy to produce same output. So I give you an example. If I always use 10 units of energy to cool my house every day, and my house is a one-room apartment, energy conservation is, or energy efficiency is, that I find a way to use that same 10 units, excuse me, to cool a 2-bedroom apartment, so more output, same input, or I find a way to use 5 units to cool the same 1-bedroom apartment. So it is either you increase, somebody is mute, is speaking. It's either you increase the output for the same energy utilization, or you reduce the input. You reduce the energy use for the same output. That's what you want to achieve with energy efficiency, which is simple. It's the same thing. To be more efficient, minus inflation that has happened in Nigeria so far, if we bring it basic thing to food, if you used to eat with 1,000 naira before and used to get food, it's either you use 800 naira and still get the same amount of satisfaction you used to get. That would be efficiency, right? Or use 1,000 naira and feed 2 people. That would be efficiency. So that is the basic understanding of energy efficiency. Now, if we go into the energy utilization, right? So we have energy utilization across a lot of streams, which we may not be able to go into the real details now, but you have energy as heat, you have energy as cooling, we have energy to run appliances, we have energy for manufacturing. So what you want to do is that you go through all of those energy value chains, and then you find how to minimize waste. It's usually done in 3 different levels. The first and basic one is human behavior. As simple as turning off your light bulbs, as simple as if you're boiling water, controlling the heat so that the flame is not, outside the pot, and then you're essentially wasting that heat or wasting the gas that is used to produce that heat. To as much as changing energy equipment. Now, because technology is evolving and we're learning a lot, we see that initially some of the energy appliances that were produced, right, were not as efficient. Case in point is the incandescent bulb that we all used to use. I want to believe, if you're in this class, that you don't have any incandescent bulb in any area that you control, so in your houses and in your offices, right? Before now, we had incandescent bulbs that were rated 60 watts, 100 watts, producing the same amount of light, or producing light. But now we have LED bulbs that are rated as low as 5 watts, producing the same amount of light for illumination, right? If you do the calculation, in terms of cost alone, it's a lot of cost savings. So if you were using a 100-watt bulb before, an incandescent 100-watt bulb, and if you were paying 50 naira for energy use for 10 months, so 100 times 10 times 5 times 50, 1,000, it will be about 50,000 naira. As opposed to if you are now using a 5-watt bulb times 5 times 15 naira, which is 25, to be about 2,500. So just by changing that light bulb, you have saved yourself over a period of time. You may not understand the savings, in 1 day or 1 month, but over a period of time, you have saved yourself as much as, if the calculation I just did is correct now, you may have saved yourself as much as 47,000 naira, right? Just by changing that light bulb. And then if you even add the cost of the light bulb, even if that light bulb is 5,000 naira, right? You've saved that amount of energy. Then also in terms of the climate, right? Because that extra energy doesn't need to be generated. So remember that you moved from 100 watts to a 5 watts, which means that you freed 95 watts, right? In places in Nigeria where generation is not enough for distribution, it means that, quote unquote, your neighbor can have light because now there's more light to go about. But also linking it down to then energy generation, it means that that extra 95 watts, and imagine if 100 million Nigerians are like this, 95 times 100, it means that that huge quantum of energy does not need to be generated again, right, by fossil fuel power plants, which is 70% of our grid today, right? So that's the importance of energy efficiency, right? And going around being energy efficient. There are certain how do landfills generate energy? We've explained that now. I think you were not here when we said it. There are certain major energy utilization systems, right, that we can look at, and maybe in subsequent sessions, we can look at and then break it down to say, when we look at heating, right, how do we conserve energy across the heating value chain? So if we look at all these big factories that, that have to do with a lot of heat, pharmaceuticals, cement producing plants, if you go there, I mean, the energy utilization is massive. It's not even 95. It's not 95 watts. Is in thousands and thousands of in some instances, it's almost megawatts of energy savings if you are able to implement an energy efficient system around, either through energy conservation, through human behavior, through energy savings and all of that. But I mean, these are conversations we can have subsequently. I know my time is exactly up, so I'll stop here. If there are still any other questions, I'll be happy to take them. Else we can call it a day. I can just, while we wait for any more questions, I can just answer, how do landfills generate energy? How do landfills generate energy? Landfills essentially generate two things. It's either you take the landfill and you burn it, so you use it as fuel. So it's either you take the waste, you burn it, the same way I explained it, you burn it, you use it to heat a liquid, whether it's water or whatever liquid you want. That liquid produces motion. That's one. Two, it's either you do that or you allow it to decompose in a controlled environment called anaerobic digestion, right? So, the way if you go to a landfill, there's a gas that is generated. That's what we perceive. That's what gives it that stench. If you control that process better, you should be able to get methane gas, CH4. You should be able to get methane gas. If you put in the right equipment, just by that landfill being there, you can get biogas. And then once you get the biogas, the same way, you can use it to boil water, or boil a liquid and use it to generate power.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ma. This has been a very insightful session, and I know all the participants definitely are enjoying it, and we would love to have it more. But to attend to some of our questions, please kindly signify if you have a question, while she also attend to the questions on the chat button. Please, just in 30 seconds, ask your question, definitely. And I'll also be dropping some questions from our participants from YouTube. We have some participants from YouTube. I will be dropping their questions shortly. But those of us that are on Zoom, please kindly drop your question while she attends to it. Thank you very much. So someone asked the question, how can we use renewable energy in the agricultural sector? I would like you talk on this briefly, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. How can we use renewable energy in the agricultural sector? So how can we use energy in the agricultural sector? One of the easiest ways to do that is through biomass, which we already explained. because of the waste that we have in agri-processing, right? So whatever processing we do to our agricultural produce will typically give us waste. So if you harvest yam, if you have to peel it and dry it, that back can be used. If you harvest rice, if you dehusk the rice, the husk of the rice that has been, the husk, the outer shell of the rice can also be used, right? Again, either through heat, like we had explained, or through biogas to generate power. In many, I think in Madagascar, and I think Dangote also does it, you can use bagasse. Bagasse is the back of sugarcane. It actually has a lot of energy content. You can use the back of sugarcane. So because most of the waste from agri-processing can already be used for biomass energy, either to produce biogas or to get the energy directly, because that can already be used. So you can then have a closed loop or some sort of a closed loop system where you use the waste from your agri-processing to provide the power, that is needed to also process that thing. So it's like a closed loop. You use the waste from the processing, provide the power, and it just becomes a closed loop. So essentially, you're not spending money or spending any other extra resources buying the gas or the diesel or even the solar panel that you need to provide the power that you need for your agri-processing. That's one of the easiest ways. Most waste produce of agri-processing can be used for power generation. So in that way, you have that loop. I think that's the easiest way, that we can use.
Thank you very much for that, Ma. And from our YouTube participants, Samuel asks that what's the effect of renewable power on the atmosphere? And he also asks that is it possible to integrate renewable energy into, he mentioned that it's possible to integrate renewable energy into the national grid, but the cost will be expensive. But to his question, in which he asks, what's the effect of renewable power on the atmosphere? Can you attend to that, please, ma'am?
On the atmosphere, we have explained that because these energy sources are clean, right? Then it means that we are not generating greenhouse gases, the NOx oxides, the nitrogen oxides, the sulfuric oxides, and of course the CO2 that has damaged the atmosphere. However, that is just categorizing it as greenhouse emissions. There is some potential negative impact when you talk about renewable energy sources. So for example, if you build a hydropower plant, you are going to affect the biodiversity of that water, right? You're going to affect the fishing habitat. You are going to maybe even cause the extinction of some fish because you're going to affect the biodiversity in that area. If your dam is not well built, and I don't mean structurally, I mean in the planning, you may cause flooding. So if maybe you were supposed to angle the dam at 45, you angled it at 46.5, over time, it may cause flooding in that area. So again, it may damage some things in the atmosphere, right? And it will fundamentally change the composition of that water body. It will fundamentally change it, and it will be unique to each water body. So I can't say this is what will happen, right? But it will fundamentally change the composition of that water body. It's typically said that wind turbines have an effect on birds, right? I know a study has been done. If you have a lot of wind turbines, it actually affects the bird habitat of that area because birds can no longer fly freely. I also think it has something to do with the noise. I think the noise of the massive wind turbines, right? So each of these Of course, with every cause, there's a side effect. Each of these have a side effect, usually to the habitat in which they are built. But in terms of the atmosphere, talking about climate change, they have very minimal effect. Of course, if you dig into the ground for geothermal energy, yeah, because you're going to cause ground disturbance, something is going to happen. Again, very unique to that area. If it was an area that maybe the ground under was not strong enough, maybe over time, what will happen is that there may be some earthquakes and all of that, that you may not know that, maybe you have impacted some of the earthquake lines, right? So you have those things that can happen. But in terms of climate and greenhouse emissions, renewable energy sources do very minimal. If you do biogas and you get CH4, if you combust CH4, that's methane, you're still going to have CO2 in the atmosphere, but it's not as much as if you're doing the gas, the C6 and the C8 and all of that, the ones that have higher carbon content in them.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have a question from Kagamida. She asked that in the case of solar and wind energy, like the northern part of the country, the wind and solar energy is relatively available in some extent, and the intermittency of these energy sources. How can we utilize the opportunity? Then Ita also asked that if you can provide journals or conferences for someone like him who has a first degree in physics with option in environmental physics. Then the last question is, please, what's the difference between renewable energy from biomass and geothermal sources? Maybe in 2 minutes. Okay, I think this will be the very last question. I just want to read the question once and for all so that you can attend to it. Question, can we generate, manage, and control biogas in our houses, at least our cooking gas? Okay, our gas, I think this is, yeah, which will also help to recycle the waste produced in our house. I feel this is a question anyway, and it's something that is very workable, but I will leave you to answer that question. Please, we might not be able to accommodate more questions for now. We are out of time already. Over to you, Ma.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we generate? Yes, you can. You can sit in your house and generate it. I know a lot of people are doing it in Ojota. Just find an engineer and paid engineer to design the system for you and provide the waste. Again, this is an rocket science. And the regulation kind of allows you to play around with certain capacities. Somebody had mentioned it here. Once you're not anywhere near, once you're below 100 kilowatts, you just need a license. If you're above 100 kilowatts. So yes, get an engineer to look at your waste. I don't know how easy it would be, but is it possible? Yes, you can definitely try that. It's not rocket science. Can we do that as a nation? Are you then asking, is this something that we can do as a nation? Yes, but it's something that must be driven from top. We haven't seen any other nation do it. So it may mean, I mean, it hasn't been studied, so it may be difficult to say that we'll do it. But I mean, one of the things that has been studied is putting solar panels on roofs. That has shown tremendous progress in many other countries. The difference between geothermal and biogas, I think I'd explained it earlier. Geothermal is the same way there is water somewhere in the water body. If you go to Atlantic Ocean, we know there's water there. If you study under the earth, you can find heat. And in some countries, you see that they have, especially in East Africa, they will show you volcano sites to show that there's heat under the earth. Created by God, nothing that we have control over. So what geothermal is that you find a way to drill down under the earth. There's heat there waiting for you. Massive heat though. The kind of heat that if you put your body inside, you can't recognize yourself. We'll find a way to extract that heat. Remember what I said earlier, once you extract that heat, use it to turn a turbine, use it to boil water or boil a liquid, and it turns the turbines and power is generated. So that's the difference. Now I've explained before that once you get motion, right? You get motion, you get your coil of wire, you get your magnet. The most important thing, if you're using conventional energy generation, is to get the motion. With biogas, you can do the same thing. You can either gasify it, you bring out gas, the same thing, use that gas to boil water to generate power, or you heat it, you take it raw like that and heat it, you heat it, and the same thing, it gives you heat gives you motion, and then motion gives you power. I'm not sure I remember all the questions. I think there was a question you asked from YouTube. I'd really like to answer that one. I'm not sure I remember it. You're muted.
All right. We have a question from YouTube. He said, is it possible to integrate Nigeria? Okay, I think you've answered that question. The person was asking if it's possible to integrate the national grid, renewable energy into the national grid, and the effect of renewable power on the atmosphere. I think those are the questions we have on our YouTube platform, and also on Zoom platform. I know that someone asked that will the decentralization of power grid and privatization of power sector promote maximization of renewable energy in Nigeria? Okay, then someone also asked that energy information is really a secret to some countries. How do you leverage?
Okay, so I would answer the integration. I personally believe it's a hybrid system. And I also think we should think energy access first before we think energy transition, right? It's a hybrid of the grid and the decentralized system that will solve the energy problem in Nigeria. Again, personal opinion. And I'll tell you why. We've had privatization for close to 7 years. And many people will say it's still in its infancy, and I agree. But we cannot wait to say, oh, let's fully develop it before you go to Niger State and give power to that farm, or you go to Taraba and give power to that farm. I would rather say we must do it responsibly, right? So once we find that energy source, Nigeria has abundant gas. Gas has been called a transition fuel. We can deploy what we have per location to solve the problem. If we go to the north and we have huge solar resource in the north, and the grid is not available, let's not think about extending the grid there. Let's use the sun that we have in the north to generate the power that the north needs, decentralize it like you mentioned in that area, and give them power. In the places that the grid is, let's strengthen the grid, improve the reliability, and give power, because the aim should be universal access to power. So with whatever is available for every location, strengthen that thing. So don't start from scratch, right? If the grid is 100 kilometers away, there's no need. Leave it. If you go 100 kilometers away and you see rice husk, you see somebody producing rice, or somebody doing what was that? Somebody that has burgers, so somebody that has sugarcane, right? If you see it there, use it, generate the power that you need, decentralize it, and give power to that location. This is my personal suggestion. Let's use what we have in every location to provide universal access to everybody, wherever they are. I think.
Yeah,
secret information. I don't know that information is secret. If you do your research well enough, you'll probably be able to find. Reach out to people. I personally reach out to people. I send people cold emails. I recently sent somebody in Egypt an email. I wanted to find out some information. There's LinkedIn, right? So if you're looking for something, you find it. If you don't know where to find it, ask question. You may not always get an answer in the first instance, but if you knock long enough, and if you're that persistent, you'll find it. And I think the thing is, once you find one, you can always find the next, because you then begin to understand, oh, this kind of information is stored in this kind of place. This kind of information is, but start from the basic, websites that are available. Power Africa has the energy plan of every African country on their website. See for all about the same thing. IEA about the same thing. I mean, start from those if you're really interested in learning about other countries. I mean, these three websites I've mentioned now will be a good place to start. Then if you need any other thing, I mean, if you read what is there, many of them will reference the source of the information. you can follow that reference. If you get to that reference, you will reference another source. You will find the cycle, right? So
thank you very much. We really appreciate you, Ma. And despite a very short invitation, you took your time to attend this masterclass. On behalf of the Sustainable Development Solution Network, really appreciate you. And I think I need to seek your indulgence regarding people that are asking for your WhatsApp number, or if it's your email, you are going to drop any link which you feel it's more comfortable to communicate with the participants of this program. And once again, we really want to appreciate all the facilitator, Dr. Ajayi, Dr. Peng. Thank you for the first session. Really appreciate you. It was an insightful one indeed. And also your section, Ma. Really appreciate you. And please, to all our participants, kindly ensure you fill the attendance and evaluation form. It's very, very important. Like we mentioned earlier, it's compulsory. You have 80% of 80% attendance in this masterclass, which is the phase 2 of this project, before we proceed to the next phase. And next week, and before I talk about the next week's session, I also want to appreciate Dr. Faustin from Rwanda. Thank you for hosting us today. We really appreciate you, sir. And next week, same time, 9 a.m., we'll be having the forest and biodiversity conservation. And we'll also have a section on environment and ecosystem. And please kindly share your inquiries via email, most importantly, whenever you have information you want us to provide you with. Really appreciate each and everyone, our facilitator. Thank you so much. We are so grateful. And to the audience, to the participants of today's program, please do ensure you go over the videos. Yeah, the slides will be sent to our email before the end of today. You are going to receive it via email. But please ensure you go over these videos, this content. Let's watch it over and over and start and think about solutions we can pioneer from these masterclasses. Have a wonderful day. Yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful day and weekend.
Who thought that teenagers who knew nothing about aviation could build a plane and it could be perfectly safe, and it is going to fly from Cape Town to Cairo? I'm Agnes Siamela, and I built the beautiful wings on this plane, and I also built the center fuselage, and I also built the horizontal and the vertical stabilizer.
First they thought that the plane won't fly, it's just a model. My name is Resoho Moroka and I'm 18 years old, and I built the central fuselage, which is known as the cockpit. It's over here.
My name is Lesoho Mahlodi Ngwasheng. I am 16 years old. So this part that sticks up is what I was actually building. Because we live in a society that's so stereotypical, especially when it comes to teenagers, a lot of people were actually shocked, like, what are they doing? This was just a dream. It was going to fail.
It took us 10 days to build this plane. It was very difficult because you had to read from engineering manuals, and you need to have a 3D type of brain to be able to see what you're doing.
Building this airplane was not an easy task at all. It came with a lot of challenges, mostly because it was the first time holding, some of the tools that we were using to build this airplane.
The challenges that I faced was teamwork, but then I learned that if I can change my point of view, my own perspective, I can work in a team.
So we're going to be flying this plane from Cape Town to Cairo. Then we're going to be flying that tens and thousands of kilometers. I don't even know how much it is.
I've always wanted to become a commercial pilot, but this project has helped me realize that there are other things in aviation besides just flying an airplane.
I would like to tell my peers and youth and everyone, if we can build a plane, you can build a spaceship. You can do whatever you want to do.
Bali, island of gods.
A green paradise.
Or a paradise lost. Bali, island of garbage.
In Bali, we generate 680 cubic meters of plastic garbage a day. That's about a 14-story building. And when it comes to plastic bags, less than 5% gets recycled.
We know that changes the image you may have of our island. It changed ours too when we learned about it. When we learned that almost all plastic bags in Bali ends up in our drains, and then in our rivers, and then in our ocean. And those that don't even make it to the ocean, they're either burned or littered.
So we decided to do something about it. And we have been working for almost 3 years now to try to say no to plastic bags on our home island. And we have had some significant successes.
We are sisters, and we go to the best school on earth, Green School Bali. Green School is not only different in the way that it is built out of bamboo, but also in the way that it teaches. We are taught to become leaders of today, something a normal textbook cannot match.
One day, we had a lesson in class where we learned about significant people, like Nelson Mandela, Lady Diana, and Mahatma Gandhi. Walking home that day, we agreed that we also wanted to be significant. Why should we wait until we were grown up to be significant? We wanted to do something now.
Sitting on the sofa that night, we brainstormed and thought of all the issues facing Bali. And one thing that stood out to us the most was the plastic garbage. But that is a huge problem. So we looked into what was a realistic target for us kids: plastic bags. And the idea was born.
We started researching, and let's just say the more we learned, there was nothing good about plastic bags. And you know what? We don't even need them.
We were really inspired by the efforts to say no to plastic bags in many other places. From Hawaii to Rwanda and to several cities like Oakland and Dublin.
And so the idea turned into the launch of Bye Bye Plastic Bags.
In the years that we have been campaigning, we have learned a lot. Lesson number 1, you cannot do it all by yourself. You need a big team of like-minded kids, and so we formed the Bye Bye Plastic Bags crew. The volunteer team includes children from all over the island, from both international and local schools. And together with them, we started a multi-layered approach based on an on- and offline signature petition, educational and inspirational presentations at schools. We raise general awareness at markets, festivals, beach cleanups, and last but not least, we distribute alternative bags. Bags like net bags, recycled newspaper bags, or 100% organic material bags, all made by local initiatives on the island.
We run a pilot village home of 800 families. The village mayor was our first friend, and he loved our t-shirts, so that helped. We focused on making the customers aware, because that's where the change needs to happen. The village is already 2/3 along the way of becoming plastic bag free.
Our first attempts to get the government of Bali on board failed. So we thought, a petition with 1 million signatures. They can't ignore us, right?
Right.
But who would have guessed 1 million signatures is like 1,000 times 1,000? We got stuck. Till we learned lesson number 2. Think outside the box. Someone mentioned that the Bali airport handles 16 million arrivals and departures a year.
But how do we get into the airport? And here comes lesson number 3. Persistence. Off we headed to the airport. We got past the janitor. And then it was his boss's boss. And then the assistant office manager. And then the office manager. And then we got shuffled down 2 levels and thought, well, here comes the janitor again. And after several days knocking on doors and just being kids on a mission, we finally got to the commercial manager of Bali airports. And we gave him the bioplastic bag speech, and being a very nice man, he said, "I cannot believe what I'm about to say, but I'm going to give you authorization to collect signatures behind customs and immigration."
In our first hour and a half there, we got almost 1,000 signatures. How cool is that? Lesson number 4. You need champions at all levels of society, from students to commercial managers to famous people. And thanks to the attraction of Green School, we had access to a steady stream of celebrities. Ban Ki-moon taught us that Secretary Generals of the United Nations don't sign petitions, even if kids ask nicely. But he promised to spread the word, and now we work closely with the United Nations.
Jane Goodall taught us the power of a people's network. She started with just 1 Roots and Shoots group, and now she has 4,000 groups around the world. We are one of them. She's a real inspiration. If you're a fellow Rotarian, nice to meet you. We are Interactors, the youngest department of Rotary International.
But we have also learned much about patience,
how to deal with frustrations,
leadership,
teamwork,
friendship.
We learned more about the Balinese and their culture.
And we learned about the importance of commitment.
It's not always easy. Sometimes it does get a little bit hard to walk your talk.
But last year, we did exactly that. We went to India to give a talk, and our parents took us to visit the former private house of Mahatma Gandhi. We learned about the power of hunger strikes he did to reach his goals. Yes, by the end of the tour, when we met our parents again, we both made a decision and said, we're going on a hunger strike.
And you can probably imagine their faces. It took a lot of convincing, and not only to our parents, but to our friends and to our teachers as well. Isabel and I were serious about doing this. So we met with a nutritionist, and we came up with a compromise of not eating from sunrise to sunset every day until the governor of Bali would agree to meet with us to talk about how to stop plastic bags on Bali.
Our Mogok Makan, as it is called in Bahasa Indonesia, started. We used social media to support our goal, and already on day 2, police started to come at our home and school.